To the 3 or 4 people who have been asking for this one's for you. I've been thinking about starting the vlog for a while. I thought it'd be kind of fun, but I'm a little worried because I feel like I can say a lot, but I don't have a lot to say. So that's kind of held me back for a bit. But today, I struck by inspiration. So one of my friends was talking about an article, which I've since read, about top Smash player Armada and him dropping out of DreamHack due to not finding a controller that fit his specifications. And as Smash God Kadano outlines in that article, it talks about how Armada's controller has a malfunction in it that only 1 to 3% of GameCube controllers, supposedly from whatever testing they've done to gather that metric, have, which allows him to execute turnaround dash or dash back much more reliably than people with a standard controller. And so the article kind of goes into how it's interesting that a malfunction could be so important with a controller. I don't even really want to get into that much. I have nothing but respect for Kadano. I have less so respect for Kotaku, but considering 80% of the article was a quote from him, maybe they're finally learning the best way for them, at least, to write an article. But notwithstanding, I'd like to talk about this epidemic in the Melee community that we see with controllers. Now, it amazes me how often this kind of thing happens, and it's not just any one player or any one country of players. How often you see on Twitter some top player complaining about what have you with their controller, looking for notches for shield drops, or their stick wasn't working that day, or whatever. I mean, take a page out of Mewtwo King's book. The man hauls a shoebox of controllers around with him everywhere he goes. He's prepared. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have people like Leffen, who can manage to book a flight from Sweden to Los Angeles for a 3-week stay in the United States for the express purpose of competing in Super Smash Bros. Melee tournaments. And they don't have their controller because they forgot it at home. Someone explain to me how you leave the country for one thing, and that's to play Melee, and you forget your controller sitting on the table. That's just mind-boggling to me. And honestly, I respect Armada for dropping out of the tournament. He was tweeting about a week earlier saying that he wasn't sure if he could find a controller for DreamHack, he'd be dropping out. But I respect him for dropping out rather than tweeting after the event about how XYZ happened and he was upset that his controller wasn't working on that day. We've all unfortunately seen the myriad of mouth-breathing comparisons to what have you that we get about Melee. Melee like Jazz is one of the more palatable ones to me, so we'll stick with that. But you see, if Melee is Jazz, your controller is your instrument. Charlie Parker didn't go on tours of the East Coast of the United States and realized he left his saxophone back in Chicago. Furthermore, I'm sure that somebody who's decent at any instrument has a certain range of instruments that are made by humans. They have imperfections. They have a certain range of imperfections that either they prefer or that they'll allow for. So they'll make sure to have those instruments lined up. Armada is the top-ranked player, according to SSBM rank in the world of last year. I'm sure people have no issue with making the claim that he still is. The article says you'd have to buy about 50 controllers in order to find ones that he liked. Buy 50 controllers. Like, I know Smash as an esport isn't exactly the most lucrative venture, but you're a grown adult making plenty of money off of these tournaments. You can afford to spend, if it's that important to you that you're not going to be entering a tournament, a major tournament, because your controller is not working, buy the controllers so you can find one that's working. Or work with someone like Kadano who does mods. I understand that the physical mods they do to the controllers don't necessarily always result in success, but work with people like that. I'm sure the best Melee player in the world has access to any community figure that he pleases to get spare controllers. Alex said, I don't want to focus too bad on Armada because I feel like, at least in terms of John's, Armada is probably middle of the road among the top players. You certainly know Mewtwo-King. Mewtwo-King's Johns are incredible. I want to talk about pre-Johnning more later, but Mewtwo-King and Leffen are consistently duking it out for title of best pre-Johnner in the world. But in terms of pure Johns, I'd say Armada's pretty middle of the road. And any issue I have with Armada as a player comes from the fact that because he's so good, he can sometimes say stuff that doesn't really make sense that people will take as fact. I think my main frustration with Armada is his characterization of Peach as a character, and thus the community's perceptions of Peach as a character. Like, obviously, Armada is the best Peach that the world has ever seen, and that I'm sure he knows plenty of things about that character and her limitations that I don't. But no matter what Armada says, if you have a sample size of n equals 1, there's nothing that we can say about Peach's potential or whether or not she's capped in the meta. Armada reminds me of another great poster child for this way of thinking, Mr. Aziz Hacks F Money Alyami, who, again, I love Hacks. I love his play. I've talked to him a couple of times. His style of giving advice. Okay, so a quick tangent. The one extended interaction I've ever had with Hacks, because I play in the New York scene, so I've seen him around a couple of times. I'm not buddy with him. I'm not going to post on Reddit talking about how I saw Aziz at a bodega the other day. I wouldn't pretend to know top players, but I've had a couple of interactions with him. Two brief great hack stories. I remember this was at Super Nebulous 3, so this was a while ago, and I play Ice Climbers. I asked him for advice on the Fox Ice Climbers matchup. I believe I started and said, "Oh, hey Hacks, I want to ask you a question." He's like, "Sure." I'm like, "So I play Ice Climbers," and he goes, "Switch to Fox." And I was immediately in the back of my head, all I could think are, the legends are true. But wanting to avoid being categorized as I'm sure the filthy memers he's forced to interact with on a daily basis, I decided I kept at it. So I was like, yeah, so when I play against Fox, I just feel really limited. I feel like when he runs that means does whatever to my shield, I can't do anything. He's like, well, of course you can't. Fox is the better character. He's going to beat you for free. But I continued pressing, and he eventually gave me some advice, really articulate advice, actually, that was very helpful. And he was very friendly once we got past the fact that he felt so strongly about my choice in character. And then another great hack story was I was just playing friendlies with my friend Ada Nebulous, and my friend's a little more involved in the community than I am, so he knows hacks probably on a more personal level. So he was talking with Hacks, and I think Hacks' tier list had just come out about where he had Mr. Game & Watch ranked 13th or something, and my other friend and I back home think Mr. Game & Watch is secret busted. That character's down tilt is insane. We call it the infomercial. It does it all. It's an edge guard, it's a spacing tool, it's a poke, it's a combo tool, it's a kill move, it's the infomercial. So I mentioned that to Hacks, and he's just like, Game & Watch is amazing. His down tilt's too good. And I felt so validated in that instance that this top player, albeit one with questionable opinions, according to the community, agreed with me on this thing. He specifically agreed with my friend and I back home on this one aspect. Felt incredible. And then, of course, my friend says, "Oh yeah, well actually, the third ranked player at our school is a Game and Watch main," and Hax just instantly deadpans. Says a lot about your school, and that to me is possibly. I mean, that probably supplanted the earlier story as my favorite Hax story of all time. Just the way he thinks, but Hax and Armada, despite like the huge respect I have for them, I think really limit the focus of the community by having such strong, like steadfast opinions and refusing. And it's unfortunate because of how good they are and how smart they are. Is why they often come off as refusing to consider other opinions. I mean, I can understand it coming from Armada. If I was the best melee player in the world, I wouldn't take shit from anyone. People would come up to me and say anything about me. I could drop a game to Bizarro Flame, or if I were Armada and I drop a set to Bizarro Flame, someone tries to say shit to that about me, I'd just be like, how many Evos you won? How many countries are you the best player at? How many out of all the planets in the known universe, how many of them are you the best fucking melee player in the world? The answer is 0. So I would be way worse than Armada, but I feel like a lot of times players like Hax and Armada refuse to consider the possibility that they're wrong or that they don't know everything. I'm sure they don't think they know everything, but you get what I'm getting at here. But anyway, back to what I had intended for this little vlog to be about is the subject of Johns. And what's a John? And when are they okay and when are they not? So again, background about Scrubby Ol' Me. Tag Triffle. I play Ice Climbers in the Long Island, New York City region. I live in Connecticut though, so that's where I play like over the summer and breaks from school. I'd say that I'm sure you have an Ice Climbers like me, wherever you're from. They were like right on the bubble of being PR'd. Had a couple of set wins against top players, which are usually pretty questionable. Whether that top player has an Ices problem or had been consuming excessive amounts of alcohol that day, or what have you. So like they were known. I mean, I think my claim to fame probably in New York was I was the best Ice Climbers who wasn't Diz, who showed up on a regular basis. I remember like J Flex would always warm up against me before his set with Diz. Then I would feel I hated that, honestly. I would feel personally responsible. If I would play like a match or two with him when he warmed up against me, and be like, "Thanks, man. I'd feel so great. I'd try to help out." Then he'd get rocked by Diz, and I'd be like, "That's because I suck and I don't play Ice Climbers like Diz Kid Boogie plays Ice Climbers. And I'm sorry, I'm not good enough, but I can't help you here anymore." So yeah, so that was a bit of background on me. I mean, that was back when I don't even want to talk. Speaking of Johns, this is about to sound one, but I've since not attended almost anything in pretty much a year at this point. I've fallen off. I doubt most of the people there really remember me or remember the fact that I was almost decent at this game. I missed my shot at my prime at age 21. It's already over. But that's okay, because now I can get to sit here and talk about dumb things like this. So I was mediocre to good, depending on who you asked. So I think what I have to say has more merit than the average person you would see on Reddit, but less merit than literally anyone else in the world, including someone who doesn't play Melee. So take that as you will. But I think in the simplest form, a John is any excuse you make that takes the win away from the person who beat you. And I mean, first off, I want to say we all John. Everyone Johns. I've done it. You've done it. Your brother's done it. There's no shame in it. It's what happens because we lose and get salty and want to John, and it's great. But I mean, we all know the classical Johns. I didn't eat enough. I didn't sleep enough. My hands are cold. My controller's broken. The TV's red RGB values were tweaked, so I couldn't tell what was. You blended into the background of Battlefield. My blood sugar was low. My dog died of cancer last week. Whatever, what have you. All those great little outside the game things that we take into our play. Then you have the more insidious Johns. Then you have more obvious gameplay Johns. Oh, I just couldn't nair out a shield today. Or like, or actually that one's kind of more questionable. It was something like, oh, my opponent was a camping bitch, or like, all my opponent did was laser. I couldn't get around it. I mean, if they're playing Falco, then yes. Then laser. If Falco does nothing but laser, he'll beat the set. He will take the set from you 10 times out of 10. So that is a perfectly legitimate John, and not included here. But if they're not playing Falco, the best character in the game, that John is BS. But those are more obvious, just like Salt. No one really take it seriously. But then you have the more insidious Johns. The ones that sound like you're taking responsibility for the loss, but in actuality, you're not. So I think for this, it's helpful if we do a little thought experiment. So let's take one of my favorite players, SFAT. So I'm not just going to poop on them because I want to. I love SFAT. But let's take, for example, let's say in the Big House 7, SFAT loses a set to some unknown Marth from Wisconsin because he tried to counterpick him, because SFAT counterpicked him in FD. So Tipman 47 has just taken a set off of SFAT and top 512 in the Big House 7. All of a sudden, everyone's fantasy bracket is in flames. SFAT, being the community-minded man he is, takes to Twitter and says the following. Good games, Tipman 47. Really, really great to see new talent rising up. That's good. That's great. I mean, some people might make fun of him for trying to kind of excuse his terrible loss by claiming that Tipman 47 is some hidden rising star in the Wisconsin region. But I think like that's a great tweet. You're congratulating your opponent, like really sportsmanlike. That's something that's great. Now we'll go to the other end of the spectrum and examine a tweet from SFAT that I think would qualify as Johnning. SFAT goes to Twitter and he's just like, really upset about my loss to Tipman 47. I really got to work on making sure not to let up tilt spam from Marth get to me. Now that sounds more ambiguous because it sounded like SFAT saying, yeah, this Marth did this thing that beat me. But in my eyes, that's a John, because SFAT's saying that it was his fault. Like, he lost that game because his opponent was spamming up tilt. It was his game to win, and he threw it away. Now, I mean, that's obviously true if a top player is losing to some no-name scrub. But if you're extrapolating it to a more even match in a more likely scenario, if you're saying that you only lost because your opponent was getting to you mentally, you're making it sound like if him and you were to beat and you're having a better day, you beat him for free. Whether or not that's true, it's John. No Johns in this community. No Johns is probably, honestly, at this point, I mean, actually, not probably, it is. We all know this, that no Johns has become so destroyed as a phrase to be devoid of meaning. But, there's no reason to tweet something. I would argue that if you're a top player, you probably shouldn't tweet after a loss unless it's to say GG's to your opponent and nothing else. Because I just wouldn't. Like, you have such an important platform and so many people who are ready to tear you down. Why would you even give them the opportunity by saying something that can be construed as a John? Just GG's, go home. Go back to your paid-for hotel room by your sponsor. Drink some shotgun a 40 with Alex 19. Why not? Go be a degenerate Melee player. Enjoy your life paid for by donations and entry fees by people like me, or people worse than me who are sitting at home, walking around with Big House 7 hoodies. A tournament that they never even were in the same hemisphere as. Go enjoy it. Don't say something dumb on Twitter. But then we get into my personal favorite, pre-Johns. it takes a special kind of person to pre-John. And that special kind of person is Mewtwo Kane or Leffen, because I can't think of anyone else that does it as regularly or as unapologetically as the two of them. Mewtwo Kane will post on Facebook in April saying something like, yeah, no, my thumb has really been bothering me lately. Not sure how this is going to affect my play at EVO. Now, M2K go to the doctor memes aside. You're talking about something that's bothering you in April is making you worried about a tournament that's in July. Okay. I don't think I have nothing to add to that because the absurdity of it should speak for itself. And I mean, most of the time when M2K and Leffen do that, they're rightfully called out as pre-Johns. But you may know someone in your community who is a pre-John master. As you're taking the train to the tournament or carpooling with them, they'll start talking about, oh yeah, no man, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Or, oh dude, I didn't get a chance to eat lunch. I hope this goes okay. I'm going to leave you with this advice. Do it for Triff. Turn over to that person and smack them upside the head. We have enough issues with top players setting bad examples and no-name Redditors. You can't see my fingers. They look like this. Saying dumb stuff on the interwebs. And then you have people like me who probably have no authority to speak on this issue. But the sole fact that I'm not good enough to have a platform is why I'm taking to the most narcissistic way to give myself one, a vlog on social media. Smack them upside the head. We don't need this. We can be better. We don't. It's fun to have people. It's fun to watch top players pre-John because it's utterly ridiculous. But as a community, we don't need this. And this is such a stupid thing to care that much about, to complain about, to make a 20 whatever minute vlog about. But I got nothing. I wanted to talk for a while on camera, see how it went. Here we are. This is where I found myself talking about is really good players saying really stupid things. And we don't need really bad players saying really stupid things. So until next time, I don't have a catchy outro phrase yet, but I promise next time I will. I'm sticking this addendum on this because I realized I didn't really talk about this, which I meant to talk about at the beginning. I hopefully had an implicit disclaimer, but I just want to clarify that I'm well aware that I did not really add anything to the discussion of issues of Johning with this video. I said some of the most white bread opinions anyone could have. I've made no bold statements or claims besides the true one that Falco is the best character in the game. And I've asserted almost nothing new. And I did not want that vlog to be interpreted that I believed I was asserting something new. I just wanted to throw my who are you, obligatory who are you, if I were to post this anywhere, hat into the ring. I included a terrible SBAT impression in the middle of it because at my core I'm a dirty memer like everyone else. I watched the Pen Boys. I watch the weekly community highlights like anyone else. That's what I do now. I don't go to tournaments anymore. I sit and consume stolen media. But yep, and also my opinions contained within are not even ones that I hold ride or die, except for the fact that Falco is the best character in the game. But other than that, nothing I said I would even want to be misconstrued as me attempting to say anything groundbreaking or say anything I thought was indisputably true. So with that in mind, I hope you guys, if you're still sitting here, thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It means that you didn't just tell me to start a vlog because you thought it would be funny to see me try to start a vlog, because you actually cared about hearing what I had to say, especially if you're not into Melee, and what I just said was a bunch of gibberish. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching that, and until next time, I still haven't thought of anything to say here.